When you think of a true deserted ghost town, what usually comes to mind? A quiet, hot, deserted street in the middle of some desolate desert? Decaying buildings looking sadly onto the past of what once was? What about cowboys and people in old-timey Western costumes? A man in a dark suit with a top hat? Perhaps some friends getting rowdy at the local saloon? What if we told you there was a deserted ghost town that was submerged under 60 feet of water at the bottom of Lake Mead? Would you believe it? It's true, and it's a place that you can visit today because the water level has reached and uncovered the remnants of this town, making it one of the only fully submerged ghost towns in the United States. The history of St. Thomas actually goes back much earlier than the 1880s. Artifacts dating back to about 300 AD show that the native people group known as the Basket Makers, or pre-ancestral Puebloan, were living on the site, followed by the ancient Puebloans, also known as the Anasazi. The pre-ancestral Puebloans were initially a hunter-gatherer society, but the introduction of the cultivation of corn led to a more settled, farming-centric life. They wore fur or feather robes, loincloths, string aprons, and plant fiber sandals. Prior to the cultivation of corn, they lived primarily in the open or in canvas tents. But about 500 BC, the first earthen structures appeared, with deeper pit houses and rooms that were above ground. The bow and arrow eventually replaced the spear for hunting, and as farming took more of a central role in everyday life, the basket makers started making more pottery and added beans to their crops. Archaeological findings have led researchers to believe that these two peoples lived side by side and shared technology and various other aspects of their cultures, until they became one group. The Anasazi moved from the area around Lake Mead and later settled for a time in what is now known as the Four Corners region of the United States, where the states of Utah, Colorado, Arizona, and New Mexico come together. As they settled here, their technology became more advanced and the cultural artifacts found near their dwellings show more intricacy. Baskets were replaced by pottery, and large masonry villages and knives began to appear. Their dwellings in and around the cliffs made defending their territory much easier. However, by 13 to 1400, the Pueblo Indian people were no longer in Four Corners. So, fast forward to 1865. A group of Mormon settlers laid claim to the land and established St. Thomas. This was actually the first settlement of the town. You see, when the Mormon settlers arrived, they mistakenly thought they were in the Utah-Arizona territories. As many small towns do, it quickly grew. However, the Nevada state government found out about the town after a few years and demanded 5 years of back taxes. The first Mormon settlers of St. Thomas refused to pay, decided to destroy their homes and burn their crops, moving to Salt Lake City. In the 1880s, more Mormon settlers reached the area and re-established the town. Soon it had a school, a few different farms, a hotel, a grocery store, a post office, and an ice cream shop. The people of St. Thomas were proud of their town, despite a lack of infrastructure like running water and electricity. They made their home here and lived their lives, until President Calvin Coolidge proposed the Hoover Dam. Now, in order to understand why the Hoover Dam was built and its ultimate impact on the town of St. Thomas, it's important to understand the context of what was going on in the region at the time. Around the turn of the 20th century, the communities of the American Southwest, specifically in southern Nevada and California, were growing at a very fast rate. There was a big problem though. Some of those communities were farming communities, and they were struggling with how to get water to their crops. They decided that they would try and divert the mighty Colorado River through a series of canals. This proved to be a faulty decision because in 1905, the Colorado broke its banks and created what is now the Inland Salton Sea. So, the problem of what to do with the Colorado River landed on the Bureau of Reclamation. And after much back and forth and lengthy legal battles, in 1922, then Secretary of Commerce and U.S. future President Herbert Hoover brokered a deal that would lead to the construction of the dam, named after him, that would bring irrigation and hydroelectric power to the surrounding communities. With the dam now in place, the water started to rise, and this included the town of St. Thomas. The waters slowly started to take over, and the residents were forced to leave. This is how the Hoover Dam came into existence, and the town of St. Thomas suffered, due to the rising waters of the new Lake Mead. In 1935, The last surviving resident of St. Thomas paddled away after the water started coming into his living room. Now, the town has been above the waterline since 2012. Because the water of Lake Mead has fluctuated over the years, this is not the first time the town has re-emerged from under the water. The first time it made its appearance was in 1945, then again in 1963, and most recently since 2012. In fact, the water level has been so low and this part of the Nevada desert has been so dry that the National Park Service has erected signs and guideposts at the site. You can also look through artifacts from the town that archaeologists have recovered from the site. You can see old fence lines and property markers. In some places, the width of streets is visible, but in others, the water and elements have worn down the remnants so they are almost non-existent. Visitors to the town remark that it is desolate. The surrounding terrain and the ruins give off an eerie vibe. Most of the original wells have been covered over with grates by the National Park Service, but you can still look down them. The town is now accessible via a short trail from a gravel parking area. But be warned, if you venture out to visit St. Thomas, pack water and wear sunscreen. Once you get out of your car, there's absolutely no shade on the trail and none when you get to the site. It is exposed to the sun and heat the entire way. And it is also helpful to find out how to get here. The closest major city is Las Vegas, about an hour-and-a-half drive to the west. If you are coming from Las Vegas, take Interstate 15 north towards Salt Lake City, then take Exit 75 toward Valley of Fire Lake Mead. Pro tip, the Moapa gas station just off Exit 75 is the last place to get gas or supplies like water. Once you get back on the Valley of Fire highway, there is nothing. Make sure you have plenty of water and gas. After about 25 miles on the Valley of Fire highway, make a right onto Shore Road, then a quick left onto Old St. Thomas Road. The road turns to gravel almost immediately. Keep on this road for another 4 miles and you will get to the parking area. Hop out and walk the trail that leads you to what is left of the town of St. Thomas. Now, as long as you are out here, it's a good idea to see 1 or 2 more sites. Just up Route 169, if you head back out to the main paved road and take a right, is the small town of Overton. In Overton is the Lost City Museum. The Lost City Museum showcases artifacts from the large Anasazi site known as the Pueblo Grande de Nevada. Back around the time of the construction of the Hoover Dam, John and Faye Perkins, residents of the area, brought the site's existence into public knowledge by alerting then Nevada Governor James Scroggum. He was looking for archaeological sites of native peoples in order to boost tourism. Scroggum appointed Mark Raymond Harrington to first excavate the site in 1924. The museum was then built in 1935 to house objects and artifacts found at the Pueblo de Nevada site. If you're looking for other things to do in Overton, have a meal at either the Inside Scoop or Cab LP. Both offer locally inspired dishes. Cab LP's menu in particular is extensive. They even feature their own homemade ice cream. If it is late and you want to stay overnight, the North Shore Inn at Lake Mead has you covered. If you want to stretch your legs, head back south of town and check out Valley of Fire State Park, near St. Thomas. While you are there, definitely check out the White Domes Trail for stunning views and a peek at some slot canyons. The Mouse Tank Trail is also another great option. St. Thomas was a thriving community in America's Southwest, about an hour-and-a-half from Las Vegas. Sadly, with the progression of the nation's infrastructure, that thriving community was lost in the 1930s. However, the town has reemerged from the bottom of Lake Mead and the National Park Service has preserved it. You can go experience it in the surrounding region yourself. Just make sure to pack plenty of water.